The alarm blared through the U.S. horizon as Captain Alice Wright rushed to the bridge. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her eyes were sharp with focus. "Report," she ordered as she stepped onto the bridge. "We've detected a crash on Titan's surface, Captain," said Lieutenant Paul Green. "It's not one of ours." Alice leaned over the screen. The image showed a strange ship, unlike any human vessel. Its metal skin glowed faintly blue, even though parts of it were buried in Titan's icy surface. "Any life signs?" she asked. "One, but it's strange," said Dr. Jack Miller, the ship's science officer. "The readings don't match anything in our database." Alice straightened up. "Alert Earth Command. Tell them we have first contact situation. Then prepare a landing team." 6 hours later, Alice led a team of 8 people toward the crashed ship. They wore protective suits as they walked across Titan's frozen surface. The orange haze of the moon's atmosphere hung above them, and Saturn loomed in the sky like a watchful eye. "The ship is at least 3 times older than human space travel," Jack said as they approached. "The metal shows no signs of rust or decay." Officer Ben Harris readied his weapon. "I don't like this, Captain." "Keep your gun down," Alice said firmly. "We're not here to start a war." They found an entrance that had been torn open in the crash. Alice led them inside, where strange lights flickered along the walls. The air inside was breathable according to their instruments, but no one removed their helmets. "Look at these markings," Dr. Susan Kelly said, pointing to symbols etched into the walls. "They don't match any known language." The team moved deeper into the ship until they reached a large chamber. In the center was a pod made of a crystal-like material. Inside the pod was a figure. "Is that the alien?" Officer Lisa Brown whispered. The being inside the pod was massive, at least 8 feet tall. It had a humanoid shape but was covered in what looked like armor that shimmered with colors. Its skin was a deep purple where it was visible, and its closed eyes were large on its angular face. Jack approached the pod with a scanner. "I'm getting life signs, but they're incredibly slow. Some kind of hibernation, maybe." As soon as his scanner touched the pod's surface, lights flashed throughout the chamber. The pod began to hiss. "Step back," Alice ordered, but it was too late. The crystal pod split open. The alien's eyes snapped open. 3 of them, all a brilliant gold color. It rose from the pod with frightening speed for something so large. Officer Harris raised his weapon, but the alien moved faster. With one sweep of its arm, it knocked Harris and Brown across the room like they were toys. They crashed against the wall and fell to the floor. "Don't shoot," Alice yelled as the rest of the team backed away. The alien stood at its full height, looking down at them. Its armor seemed to be part of its body, shimmering with colors that shifted like oil on water. It made a sound, deep and resonating, that made the walls vibrate. The team retreated to the entrance of the chamber. The alien watched them, but didn't follow. Instead, it moved to a panel on the wall and placed its hand on it. A force field appeared, separating the team from the alien. "Is everyone okay?" Alice asked once they were a safe distance away. Harris and Brown were bruised but alive. The team regrouped outside the ship. "What do we do now, Captain?" Jack asked, his face pale behind his helmet. Alice looked back at the alien ship. "We set up a perimeter and call for backup. Whatever that thing is, it's older than our entire civilization, and it doesn't seem happy to see us." As if to confirm her words, the alien ship's lights pulsed brighter, and a low hum began to build. The ancient warrior had awakened, and no one knew what that meant for humanity. 3 months passed. The crash site on Titan was now surrounded by a research station. Bright lights shone on the alien ship at all hours. Scientists and soldiers moved around the area, but none went too close to the ship itself. Captain Alice Wright stood at the main observation window, watching the alien ship. The being inside had not left, but sometimes they saw its shadow moving behind the force field. "Any progress?" she asked as Dr. Jack Miller joined her. Jack shook his head. We've sent in 12 drones, all destroyed. The alien won't respond to any communication attempts. The door slid open, and a tall man with gray hair walked in. Everyone in the room stood straighter. Director Carter. Alice greeted him. Samuel Carter nodded stiffly. Captain Wright. I want a full report. Earth Command is getting impatient. They moved to the conference room where Jack showed images of the alien on a large screen. We've learned a few things, Jack explained. The alien's armor seems to be fused to its body. We don't know if that's natural or technological. Our best guess is that this being is at least 3,000 years old. 3,000? Director Carter looked shocked. Yes, sir. The ship's materials date back that far. We found similar materials in ruins on 7 different planets. Carter frowned. So this thing might be connected to the ancient architects. The ancient architects was the name humans had given to a mysterious civilization that had left ruins throughout the galaxy. No one had ever found a living member of the species. We think so, Alice said, but we can't confirm it without direct communication. Carter stood up. I've been sent here with new orders. We have 2 weeks to make contact. If we can't, we'll consider military options. Military options? Alice was shocked. Sir, we can't attack an alien we know nothing about. This alien has already shown it's dangerous, Carter reminded her. And it's sitting on technology that could be vital to Earth's security. We need to know if it's a threat. That night, Alice couldn't sleep. She went to the observation deck and was surprised to find the alien was active. It moved in slow, precise patterns that looked like a dance or perhaps a martial art. Its 3 golden eyes seemed to glow in the dim light of its chamber. A woman Alice didn't recognize stood watching the alien. She had curly red hair and wore civilian clothes instead of a uniform. You shouldn't be here, Alice said. This area is restricted. The woman turned. Dr. Elizabeth Novak, cynoanthropologist. My clearance came through today. She held up an ID badge. Alice checked the badge. It was legitimate. What do you make of our visitor? Alice asked. Elizabeth watched the alien's movements. I think everyone's approaching this wrong. Look at how it moves. Those aren't random actions. They're rituals. Precise. Meaningful. We've tried everything to communicate, Alice said. Nothing works. You've tried human methods of communication, Elizabeth replied. But that's not a human. They watched as the alien completed its movements and then stood still, facing the observation window. For a moment, Alice was sure it was looking directly at them. It knows we're here, Elizabeth whispered. Of course it does, Alice said. It's destroyed every drone we've sent in. No, I mean right now. It's aware of us watching. Elizabeth stepped closer to the glass, and I don't think it's as hostile as everyone believes. Tell that to the officers it threw across the room, Alice said. Has it hurt anyone since then, even when you sent armed drones in? Alice had to admit the alien had only destroyed their equipment, not attempted to break out or attack the station. It's waiting, Elizabeth said with certainty. For what? Elizabeth kept her eyes on the alien. That's what I'm going to find out. In its chamber, the alien made a sound, not the threatening rumble from before, but something softer, almost like singing. The sound made the observation window vibrate slightly. Did you hear that? Elizabeth's eyes were wide with excitement. It's trying to tell us something. Dr. Elizabeth Novak sat in her small office, surrounded by screens showing the alien. She had been studying its movements for a week. There's a pattern, she explained to Captain Alice Wright. It performs the same sequences at the same times each day. What does that tell us? Alice asked. It suggests the alien follows strict rules or traditions. Its actions aren't random. Elizabeth pointed to one screen. I think these movements are a form of communication. Alice frowned. Director Carter wants results. Fast. He's talking about trying to capture the alien. That would be a disaster, Elizabeth said. She took a deep breath. I want to try something. Against protocol. What do you mean? I want to send in another drone, but not to scan or record, just to leave something. Alice looked skeptical. The alien has destroyed every drone we've sent, because they all tried to do something to it. Elizabeth explained. This one won't. It will just leave an offering and retreat. An offering? Like what? Elizabeth held up a small crystal sculpture that caught the light. Something beautiful. Something that shows we can create, not just destroy. Despite her doubts, Alice agreed to the plan. They watched from the control room as a small drone entered the alien's chamber. It placed the crystal sculpture on the floor and immediately backed away. The alien approached the crystal cautiously. Everyone held their breath. Instead of destroying the drone, the alien picked up the crystal. Its 3 golden eyes studied the sculpture. Then, to everyone's surprise, it placed the crystal in a specific spot near its sleeping area. It didn't destroy it. Alice whispered. No, Elizabeth said, smiling. And now I want to try something bigger. Over the next week, Elizabeth showed up on the monitors each day. She stood where the alien could see her and performed movements that mimicked the alien's daily rituals. At first, the alien simply watched. By the 5th day, it began to mirror some of her movements. This is incredible, Jack said as he watched the footage. It's the first real interaction we've had. Director Carter was less impressed. Mimicking each other isn't communication. We need to know what it wants, and if it's a threat. I need to go in there, Elizabeth said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. Absolutely not, Carter said firmly. Not alone, Elizabeth clarified. I want to bring someone with me. My assistant, Frank Holloway. Frank was a young technician who had been helping Elizabeth analyze the alien's movements. He looked nervous at the suggestion. 2 people performing the ritual might show that humans can work together, Elizabeth explained. It might help build trust. After much debate, Carter reluctantly agreed, but only if they stayed behind the force field. The next day, Elizabeth and Frank stood at the entrance to the alien's chamber. They began the ritual movements Elizabeth had been practicing. The alien watched them with interest. It's working, Elizabeth whispered to Frank as the alien moved closer to the force field. Then something went wrong. Frank's neural implant, a standard piece of technology for technicians, made a high-pitched sound. The alien's posture changed instantly. It made a threatening sound and smashed the crystal sculpture. Then it retreated to the far side of the chamber. What happened? Alice asked when they returned to the control room. Something about Frank upset it, Elizabeth said. She turned to Frank. Did you change anything today? Do anything different? Frank shook his head, looking confused and upset. No, nothing. Except, he touched the back of his neck. My neural implant got updated this morning. Standard security patch. Elizabeth's eyes widened. That's it. The alien reacted when your implant activated. But why? Alice asked. Elizabeth paced the room. What if it's not just the alien that's important? What if there's something on this ship, some knowledge or technology, that it's protecting, and it thinks our technology might be a threat to it? Alice finished the thought. Elizabeth nodded. I need to try once more, but this time, completely alone. No technology at all. Carter shook his head. Too dangerous. We're running out of time, Elizabeth reminded him. You said yourself, 2 weeks. Then military options. Alice looked between them. Let her try. But we set up every safety measure possible. Carter didn't look happy, but he nodded. One last chance. Tomorrow. That night, Elizabeth couldn't sleep. She stood watching the alien, who seemed restless too. For a moment, their eyes met across the distance. I'll find a way to understand you, she whispered. I promise. Elizabeth stood in the preparation room, removing all her equipment. No communicator, no scanner, not even her watch. She wore a simple jumpsuit with no metal parts. "This is crazy," Dr. Jack Miller said as he ran tests on her. "You'll have no way to call for help." "That's the point," Elizabeth said calmly. "No technology at all." Captain Alice Wright entered the room with Director Carter. Both looked worried. "We've set up every safety measure possible," Alice said. "Armed guards at all entrances. The force field controls are ready. If anything goes wrong, we'll pull you out immediately." "Nothing will go wrong," Elizabeth insisted. Director Carter frowned. "You have 10 minutes. If you don't make progress, we're pulling you out." Elizabeth nodded. She took a deep breath and walked toward the alien's chamber. The doors hissed open, then closed behind her. She was alone with the alien. The force field still separated them. The alien stood on the other side, watching her with its 3 golden eyes. It seemed taller up close, its purple skin contrasting with the metallic armor fused to its body. Elizabeth began the ritual movements she had practiced. Slowly, carefully, she followed the pattern she had seen the alien perform many times. When she finished, she stood still and waited. The alien tilted its head. Then it approached the force field. It placed one 6-fingered hand against the invisible barrier and made a soft sound. Behind her, Elizabeth heard Carter's voice through the speakers. 5 minutes left, Dr. Novak." The alien jerked back at the sound of Carter's voice. Elizabeth quickly made a calming gesture with her hands. "Please," she said to the alien, pointing to the force field controls. "I want to understand you." The alien studied her for what felt like a long time. Then it moved to a panel on its side of the chamber. It pressed several symbols, and the force field flickered. "What's happening?" Carter's voice came through again, sounding alarmed. The force field vanished. There was now nothing between Elizabeth and the alien. "Dr. Novak, get out of there now," Carter ordered. Elizabeth didn't move. The alien stood just a few feet away from her. It could easily kill her with one strike. Instead, it made a series of gestures, similar to the ritual but with new movements. Slowly, Elizabeth copied the gestures. The alien made a sound that almost seemed like approval. It repeated the sequence, adding more movements. Elizabeth followed along, realizing that this was no ritual. It was language, a form of sign language. "I think it's trying to talk to me," she said, knowing the others could hear her. "It's teaching me how to communicate." The alien reached out one hand, palm up. Elizabeth hesitated for only a moment before placing her much smaller hand above it, not quite touching. The alien closed the distance, touching her hand gently. Its skin was warm and felt like smooth leather. Elizabeth was surprised at how careful it was, as if afraid it might hurt her. Then the alien reached into a compartment in its armor and pulled out a small device. It placed the device in Elizabeth's hand. The device lit up, projecting a star map into the air between them. "What is that?" Alice asked over the speakers. "Star maps," Elizabeth breathed. "It's showing me locations." The alien pointed to one particular star, then made more gestures. Elizabeth tried to follow, but couldn't understand all of it. "I think," Elizabeth started, "I think it's trying to tell me about other places, other sites like this one." The alien nodded, a surprisingly human gesture. It pointed to the map again, then to itself, then made a motion like guarding something. "You're a guardian," Elizabeth said. "You protect something." The alien touched its chest and made a sound. The same sound repeated 3 times. It was trying to tell her its name, or maybe what it was. 10 minutes are up, Carter said. "Come out now." "Just a little longer," Elizabeth pleaded. "We're finally communicating." The alien seemed to understand the tension. It stepped back and gestured toward the door, indicating Elizabeth should go. "I'll come back," she promised it, without technology. As she walked back to the door, Elizabeth looked at the star map device in her hand. The alien had given her a gift, the first piece of its knowledge. And with it, A chance for humans to learn who and what this ancient warrior really was. The control room was full of excited voices. Scientists gathered around Elizabeth as she showed them the star map device. It works by touch, she explained, running her fingers over its smooth surface. The holographic map appeared above it, showing countless stars and planets. These locations, Jack said, pointing to the glowing dots on the map. They match exactly with the ancient architect ruins we've discovered. Alice looked amazed. So this alien is connected to the architects. Elizabeth nodded. I think it's more than that. I think it's one of them, or at least left behind by them. Director Carter watched with narrowed eyes. What did it want in exchange for this? Nothing, Elizabeth said. It was a gift, a first step toward trust. Over the next week, Elizabeth visited the alien every day. Without technology, without weapons. Each time, she learned more of its gesture language. The alien was patient, repeating movements until she understood. On the 5th day, Elizabeth brought a small team of linguists who watched from behind a clear barrier. They helped develop a simple communication system. The alien calls itself Sentinel, Elizabeth reported. At least, that's the closest translation. It means one who watches or one who guards. Guards what? Carter asked. Knowledge, Elizabeth said. The architects, Sentinel calls them the precursors, were an ancient race. They traveled the galaxy, studying life. Then they vanished. But before they did, they left guardians like Sentinel to protect their knowledge. Jack looked at the star map again. So each of these locations has a guardian. Had, Elizabeth corrected. Sentinel says most are gone now. Either their tasks ended or they were. She paused, searching for the right word. Taken. By those who wanted their knowledge by force. The idea that there had been other alien races capable of space travel was shocking to everyone. Humans had thought they were the first to reach the stars. What knowledge is Sentinel guarding? Alice asked. Elizabeth took a deep breath. A repository. A database of all precursor knowledge about biology. How life works. How to change it. How to heal it. Or harm it. The room went silent. And has it determined if we're worthy of this knowledge? Carter finally asked. Not yet, Elizabeth said. That's why it's been watching us, studying how we act. My approach, showing respect rather than force, was the first positive sign in thousands of years. Carter frowned. Thousands of years. How old is this Sentinel? Over 12,000 years, Elizabeth said quietly. The precursors left when their sensors detected a cosmic event that would make the galaxy uninhabitable for a time. They put their guardians in stasis, programmed to wake when new intelligent life evolved. Sentinel wasn't supposed to wake up yet, Alice guessed. Elizabeth nodded. The crash damaged its ship. It woke early and has been alone, waiting, for centuries. That night, Elizabeth couldn't sleep. She went to the observation deck and found Alice there, watching Sentinel. What if we're making a mistake? Alice asked quietly. What if it's lying to us? I don't think it can lie, Elizabeth said. The Guardians were created to be honest, to judge fairly. But 12,000 years is a long time to be alone. Alice pointed out. What if it's broken somehow? What if it gives us knowledge we're not ready for? Elizabeth didn't have an answer. She watched as Sentinel moved around its chamber, arranging small objects in patterns. It seemed to be building something. What is it doing? Alice asked. I think, Elizabeth said slowly, it's making something for us. A test, maybe. In the quiet control room, a computer beeped. Jack, who was on night duty, checked the alert. Director Carter has sent a message to Earth Command. He told them, looking worried. He's requesting military backup. Said it's for security. Elizabeth felt a chill. He's going to try to take the repository by force. Alice's face hardened. Not if I have anything to say about it. 3 days later, a military ship arrived at the Titan station. The U.S. Defender was bigger than the research vessel, and it carried soldiers instead of scientists. Captain Alice Wright was waiting in the docking bay when their commander stepped out. He was a tall man with a stern face. Captain George Bradley, he introduced himself. Earth Command sent us to help secure the alien artifact. We have the situation under control, Alice said firmly. Director Carter appeared behind her. Welcome, Captain Bradley. I'm glad Earth Command took my concerns seriously. Elizabeth watched from a distance. She didn't like this new development. When the military officers left, she approached Alice. This is bad, Elizabeth said. If they try to take the repository by force, Sentinel will fight back. I know, Alice replied quietly. But Carter has gone over my head. There's not much I can do. Elizabeth thought for a moment. I need to warn Sentinel. It needs to know what's happening. Carter has restricted access to the alien. Alice told her. No one goes in without his approval. Elizabeth's face hardened. Then we need to find another way. That night, Elizabeth met with Jack and Frank in her quarters. They spoke in whispers, afraid of being overheard. The soldiers are setting up some kind of equipment around Sentinel's chamber, Frank reported. They're not telling us what it does. We need to get a message to Sentinel, Elizabeth said. Can you help me get in there? Frank looked nervous, but nodded. I can override the security for a few minutes, but if they catch you, I'll take that risk, Elizabeth said. Meanwhile, in the command center, Captain Bradley was showing Director Carter a set of plans. The containment field will neutralize any defense systems, Bradley explained. Then we can extract the alien and the repository. And the alien? Carter asked. Will it be harmed? Bradley's face was expressionless. That's not our primary concern. Alice, who had been required to attend the meeting, stood up. This goes against everything we stand for. First Contact Protocol requires peaceful interaction. This isn't First Contact anymore, Bradley said coldly. This is a security operation. At midnight, Frank shut down the security systems for Section 3. Elizabeth slipped through the shadows toward Sentinel's chamber. She had just reached the door when alarms began to blare. Security breach in Section 3. A voice announced over the speakers. All personnel on alert. Elizabeth didn't hesitate. She rushed into Sentinel's chamber. The alien was already standing, alert and wary. Sentinel, Elizabeth called, using both words and the gesture language they had developed. Danger coming. Humans with weapons want to take repository. Sentinel's eyes narrowed. It moved to a wall panel and pressed several symbols. The ship around them hummed to life. Lights that had been dark for thousands of years began to glow. What are you doing? Elizabeth asked. Protecting, Sentinel gestured. As I was made to do. The door burst open, and soldiers rushed in, weapons raised. Behind them came Director Carter and Captain Bradley. Step away from the alien, Dr. Novak. Bradley ordered. Sentinel moved with incredible speed. A force field appeared, separating Elizabeth and Sentinel from the soldiers. One soldier fired his weapon, but the energy blast bounced off the field. Stop, Elizabeth shouted. You'll only make things worse. Sentinel placed a hand on a larger panel. The entire ship shuddered. Outside, they could hear more alarms. The alien ship is activating unknown systems. Someone reported over the station's comm system. Energy readings are off the charts. Carter looked panicked. What have you done, Novak? What have I done? Elizabeth was furious. You tried to steal something you don't understand from a being that's been protecting it for 12,000 years. Sentinel made a series of quick gestures to Elizabeth. What's it saying? Alice asked, having just arrived. Elizabeth watched Sentinel's hands carefully. It's saying this is the final test. How we act now determines everything. Bradley raised his weapon again. I have my orders. Before he could fire, Elizabeth did something no one expected. She stepped between Sentinel and the humans, her back to the alien, facing her own people. If you want to get to Sentinel, she said quietly. "You'll have to go through me first." The room fell silent. Elizabeth stood with her arms spread wide, protecting Sentinel from her fellow humans. Bradley's weapon was still pointed at her, but he looked uncertain. "Lower your weapon, Captain," Alice ordered, stepping forward. "That's an order." "I don't take orders from you," Bradley replied, but his voice wavered. Director Carter looked between Elizabeth and Sentinel, then at the humming ship around them. Lights pulsed along the walls. The power readings were still climbing. "Stand down," Carter finally said to Bradley. "Everyone, stand down." Bradley hesitated, then slowly lowered his weapon. The other soldiers followed his lead. Behind Elizabeth, Sentinel placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. She turned to face the alien, who was making a series of gestures. "What's it saying?" Alice asked. "It says," Elizabeth translated, her voice filled with emotion, "that in 12,000 years, no species has ever chosen to protect a guardian rather than try to take what it protects." Sentinel moved past Elizabeth and approached the force field. With a wave of its hand, the barrier disappeared. The soldiers tensed, but Sentinel made no threatening moves. Instead, it knelt down, a sign of respect, and looked directly at Carter. "The test is complete," Elizabeth translated as Sentinel gestured. "Humans have shown both paths, the desire for power, but also the courage to choose understanding." Sentinel rose and walked to a wall that began to slide open. Behind it was a small room filled with soft blue light. In the center floated a crystal similar to the star map, but much larger. "The repository," Elizabeth whispered. Sentinel gestured again. "Not all knowledge at once. That would be too dangerous. But some, enough to help, enough to heal." Carter stepped forward cautiously. "You're giving us access." Elizabeth translated Sentinel's reply. "Partial access. Under guidance. The human who stood between danger and guardian has proven worthy to learn." 6 months later, the Titan station had changed completely. The military presence was gone, replaced by a small team of scientists who worked directly with Sentinel. The ship was no longer a crash site, but a place of learning. Elizabeth sat with Sentinel in what they now called the garden, a room where plants from Earth grew alongside strange, beautiful specimens from other worlds. Sentinel had helped create the space, showing how precursor knowledge could bring life to the coldest moon. "The healing technology you showed us has already saved thousands on Earth," Elizabeth told Sentinel. "The treatments for radiation sickness alone." Sentinel made a gesture that Elizabeth now recognized as satisfaction. Over the months, the alien had become more expressive, learning human gestures as Elizabeth learned its language. Alice entered the garden, smiling at the sight of the human and alien sitting together. "The Council has approved your request," she told Sentinel. "You've been granted permission to visit Earth." Sentinel stood, its 3 golden eyes bright with what Elizabeth had come to recognize as excitement. It was still an imposing figure, tall and powerful in its living armor, but no longer frightening to those who knew it. "Will you be ready to leave next week?" Alice asked. Sentinel looked at Elizabeth, who nodded encouragingly. "We'll be ready," she answered for both of them. That night, Elizabeth found Sentinel on the observation deck, looking out at Saturn's rings. She stood beside the ancient warrior, comfortable in its presence. "Are you nervous about visiting Earth?" she asked. Sentinel's gesture was complex, partly yes, partly no. "My kind were made to be alone," Sentinel explained through gestures. "To watch, to wait, to judge, never to connect." "But you've connected with us," Elizabeth said. Sentinel turned its 3 eyes toward her. "That is why everything has changed, not just for humans, for guardians too." As they looked out at the stars together, Elizabeth thought about how far they had come. From fear to understanding, from isolation to connection. "The precursors would be proud," she said softly. Sentinel made a gesture she had never seen before. When she asked what it meant, the alien's response was simple: "Hope."